Hello and welcome to the Flying Frog podcast, which is all about hybrid working. Every episode we'll be sharing thoughts, ideas and insight with an industry leader. My name is Graham Hoskins and I'm here with my co-host Natalie Calvert. Together we have formed Hybrid Work Smart, and this is the first in our brand new series of videos and podcasts. Natalie.
Thanks, Graham. Oh, let's just kick off. No more to do, and welcome our very first industry leader. Joining us today is Richard Stollery, who's the Customer Experience Director of the Share Centre. I should probably declare at this point that I have known Richard for a long time. We go back a long way, and we first worked together over 20 years ago when he joined Xerox, and I was involved in the setup of what was then a national telephonics operation. So, Richard, a long time, but I will say no more. Over to you to introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about you, Richard.
Thanks, Natalie. We haven't aged a bit, have we?
I agree, totally.
So, yes, we met at Xerox and I became responsible for the direct operations and you helped me set those up. And we together changed the sort of traditional business model at Xerox, which at that time was very much a direct sales force out in the field. So we had this wonderful team of the inside sales force, as I think we called them, who increasingly started selling Xerox products over the phone, which people will smile at today, but was quite revolutionary at the time.
Especially for an organisation like Xerox, right?
Yes, a very traditional, an American company. And after Xerox, I joined Lego, and I was there for approximately 10 years. I was responsible for initially customer service in Europe, and then customer service worldwide. And then my job morphed into being responsible for customer experiences, so increasingly my job, I was given license to be the internal customer. So I really was given license in a meeting to put my hand up and say what we've just decided isn't in the best interests of the customer. So, and obviously backed by the then CEO of Lego. And I would say today, Lego, as well as being the most profitable toy company in the world and the largest, is the most customer-centric organisation I've certainly worked for. And I think those things absolutely tie together, being customer-centric and reaping the rewards from customers for being that in terms of revenue and profit that then can be reinvested.
Richard, when we were talking last week, I pointed out or asked you about the basketball in the background behind you, and that's actually a very unique toy, isn't it?
It is. I'm now going to have to grab it very quickly. So this is my pride and joy. It is actually a full-size basketball made out of Lego. This was, if you can make something spherical out of Lego, then you're on your way to becoming a master builder. This was my leaving present after almost 10 years at Lego from my team. So yes, it has pride of place on my my display behind.
And for anybody who's listening and not watching, Richard has behind him what appears to be on his shelf a full-size basketball, and he just showed it to the camera, and it is a full-size spherical basketball but made of Lego. It's quite incredible.
Lego, I was there for almost 10 years, and then my kids grew up and they wanted a new pair of trainers, so I went to work for Adidas, actually based in Germany. I'm a very keen sports person, so I was responsible for CRM and helping them build the infrastructure by which they could engage customers' passions about sports and fashion. So that was, whereas Xerox were American and Lego very much Danish, Adidas, of course, German company. So it's always amazing, the different cultures in the different organisations that I've had the fortune to work for.
And both of those global roles as well. Global
Yes.
roles and kind of pioneering in change in the way those companies were operating and changing how they were thinking around the customer as well.
Yes, and just thinking about the subject we're talking about today, the at Lego, my team were in, I think, 7 or 8 different countries, and so I would have my one-to-ones by video. So I didn't know then what a new world of Teams and Zoom we would now be into as a matter of course. It was quite revolutionary at the time. So yes, and then after Adidas, I came back to the UK, and my wife had a say in matters, and I joined M&S, a British institution that is M&S, and I was responsible for customer service as delivered through their in-house and outsourced contact centre operations, which were both UK and beyond. So, and yes, and for the last 4 years, I then joined the Share Centre, my current role, where I'm the CX director for the Share Centre, who are retail stockbrokers. So we have thousands of customers who use our platform to make investments. So our job is to try and make that simple for them and easy to do, and to share information and guidance on potential investments.
Again, another really successful role. I'm probably blowing your own trumpet here, but the Share Centre has just been recently sold in the last few months as well, hasn't it? So from growth to growth to growth.
That is true. That the Share Centre has been acquired by Interactive Investor.
Richard, just, I mean, what's kind of been your experience over the last 18 months of lockdown and working from home?
Yeah, so I've been fortunate in that COVID hasn't significantly impacted my friends and family. So I completely understand those who have been directly impacted in very serious ways, of course. So, and that's one of the things that we need to recognise going forwards in terms of the new way of working. But yes, personally, I've been working at home for the majority of time, but also in the office. So I've been in the office for 2 days this week. So I've been fortunate both to have a study at home and a good space and with good Wi-Fi and good light and a nice desk and chair.
Yeah.
But also have the luxury of going into the office and getting that social interaction and to meeting my teams that are continuing to work in the office. So
you've almost been living, or you have been living that hybrid world already. But in terms of big corporates, how do you see the balance of home and working from the office panning out in the future?
It's going to be crucially important. As Natalie knows, I'm a great fan of the service profit chain. So it's down to us as leaders to inspire our teams, as they're typically the ones that are delivering the experience to customers. And if you get all that right, then the business results should follow. So I see hybrid working as a key part in the future of that.
And what do you see as the main advantages for an organisation? So thinking about the organisation rather than the employees at the moment, but what's the main advantages, do you think, for the organisation for adopting and continuing with a hybrid model?
I think it's a huge opportunity for those companies that get this right, and there's most definitely not a sort of one size fits all. So in tangible terms, retaining and recruiting staff, the commitment and productivity, if you can get this right, of your teams, and that will feed through to the experience that you're delivering to your customers. So I'm nervous about some of the press already about organisations that seemingly have come up with their new hybrid policy. and haven't necessarily consulted all of the individuals within their organisations, because I don't think anybody has the magic answer. So a key thing will be to engage everybody. There's no, whereas I've got a nice study to work from, and the luxury also of going into the office, lots of people haven't that, and I've had plenty of Zoom calls which have been interrupted by pets or haven't happened because people's homeschooling responsibilities, or their broadband's not working properly.
The ever-present deliveries to the door.
Sorry?
The ever-present deliveries to the door. Everyone seems to be getting a delivery every hour or so.
It's interesting that, isn't it? Because when you think about it, going back to the service profit chain, we've got our employees on one side, our business right at the top of that triangle for the service profit chain, and then our customers too played that third corner. So what do you think will be the longer term effects on customer experience and hybrid working coming together, Richard?
So customers will demand more. I think lots of customers made allowances in the first instance, but that's wearing a bit thin. So on the IVR messages, when you try and contact an organisation and you hear that we might take longer to answer the phone, I think that might have been true originally, but now it's I don't think there's a COVID excuse. So customers will demand a better experience. And I think the traditional sort of 9 to 5, lots of customers are wanting interactions with organisations at all hours. And so I don't think so how do you facilitate that? You facilitate it by more flexible working, by more organisations like Lego are using their own brand advocates and communities to actually answer customers' inquiries. So there are some forward-thinking companies out there that are doing things right and engaging their own customers to answer other customers, and outside of normal working hours.
That's the great answer for building customer community, really, isn't it? Get your customers to answer the customers' queries. But when it comes to employees, though, we were just thinking, we've got a third of our staff roughly that are wanting to work at home going forward. We've got a third that want to be just in the office. And roughly we've got about a third that want this mix. Now, that changes depending on the age group, but that's generally the picture. As a customer experience leader, what are your views on managing this successfully? How do we manage this whole mix going on?
Yes, and that's been a challenge, and we've learned fast at the Share Centre, because I've got colleagues who haven't been in the office for perhaps 18 months, and other colleagues who have been asked to work and have worked in the office who perhaps were reluctant to do so. And interesting, a lot of the staff that we haven't been able to facilitate home working for are typically your lower paid members of staff. So I'm hoping that in the new world that due recognition is given to that group.
Do you see salaries going up there, Richard? That due recognition, is that in salary terms or in other ways?
No, it is in. I think it is in salary terms, but also in reward and recognition and catching people doing things right, and in a whole host of. I think it's going to impact organisations big time through from their recruitment, their onboarding, their quality and continuous improvement functions, the reward and recognition. But going back to your third, how do you, for those people that have been able to work at home or have had no choice but to work from home, how do you make sure that they feel connected to what's going on? So you might have those different groups, and you're right, age, gender might be factors there. How do you make sure that you're still fostering one team? And some of the things we've done is just, I can think of, we had an ice cream van turn up last week. people not in the office look quite jealously at, oh, they're getting an ice cream in the office. But similarly, people at home, you know, what can we do to engage them? And my CEO a few months ago sent a personal handwritten card to 250 employees. So communication is key. As leaders, I've learned, don't do enough of this, but I've learned you can't just speak to your direct reports. You need to engage everyone.
Yep.
So I've made a point of speaking to my direct reports. It's sometimes good that they hear a different voice. So attending team meetings and making sure that they still feel connected, and you do understand as a leader what personal circumstances they're having, or you're asking them to perform the job. Whilst
from a customer perspective, though, how do you really make sure that brand, when people are working at home, that it's kind of in their DNA in the office in many ways, it's surrounding them? So when you're bridging that gap between the office and home, what thoughts have you had on that?
Yeah, we will change the way we recruit and we onboard, and that's what I was kind of referring to with your quality function and your continuous improvement. How do you recognize the performance of people in the office and at home?
Yeah.
I've heard some stories that, you know, will I not get promoted because I haven't been able to come in the office?
Yeah.
Is my performance respected and realized? So there are things that you can do. There are some fantastic customer survey tools these days where, so for example, if someone phones your organization, you can send them a survey straight after that interaction. You can show a picture of the person that you've been dealing with, and you say, hi Richard, hi Natalie, it's Richard, how did I do on that call? And it can be gamified, and I can ask you, you know, sort of score me out of 5 stars.
Yeah.
And we are operating a survey like that, and our response rate is over 40%. And we get responses from customers after a call, for example, within, I think the record is about 90 seconds.
Wow.
That goes to our contact center advisor, and so they can get instant feedback.
Yep.
From customers. And we've got some of our contact center advisors working at home and some in the office.
It's interesting as well, though, because we can cope with the customer, the front line. There's that bridging role, which is the team leader, isn't it? So to make sure that they're really dipped and immersed in that company culture, what's expected, so they can understand how to bring it alive, has to be a key linchpin in the whole process now with working from home, I think.
And I think as well, Richard, you were saying it a second ago, that the thing about to Natalie's question about culture, when you were talking about the staff, or you were reading about staff who were saying, am I risking promotion by working at home? You know, there's a risk of a potential 2-tier, or, you know, 2 versions of cultures emerging. Those who, or even 3, you know, those who go back to the office fully, those who, if they can, choose to remain fully working from home, and those who do hybrid working in the middle. You know, there's a danger of multiple cultures arising if you don't do the things like working through the team leaders, as Natalie was saying.
There's also the gig economy in that, isn't there, where they might not just be working for one organization anymore.
Yes.
That whole rotation of 2 or 3 different companies at 2 or 3 different locations. It could all get quite interesting as we go forward now. Yeah,
certainly those jealousies, we've had that on occasion, so we've worked very hard at trying to overcome those, and it's been difficult, but there isn't a magic answer to that other than speaking to people. And so we're intending to do a survey quite soon of everyone across the organisation, with a view to before we agree any sort of back to work policy, you know, hopefully vaccinations and some of the relaxing of social distancing, then we're making plans for sort of back to work in September, but that will be very much a hybrid working model. But we won't be prescriptive in that. And the first step is asking people what would they personally like, and seeing what we can accommodate whilst meeting the needs of the business.
Richard, do you think hybrid working will still be here in 5 years?
Yes, I think it will be obviously more mature then. And there'll be winners and losers in terms of organisations. The organisations that get it right will be able to attract the right staff. There's bound to be a shortage of talent, and so it's a great opportunity for those organisations that are willing to put the time and effort into really understanding and engaging their staff to come up with a model that works for staff and for the business.
And in a nutshell, if you were giving advice to companies who were doing as you're doing, planning the hybrid working rather than saying we're just going to go do this now. So in a nutshell, what would be your advice?
So transparency, one size doesn't fit all. It's got to be an individual application. Yes, so engagement, fairness, transparency, good communication, I guess some of the traditional, leadership principles, even more so now in terms of getting a hybrid working model correct.
Yep. I think that's exactly right, isn't it? It's that whole transparency, authenticity, as people are going forward now to make sure it works for all parties involved. It's kind of, we've talked for the last decade about customer power and customer experience, and employee experience has kind of slipped in a little bit on the back foot there. But this decade ahead of us feels as if it's going to be about employee power and employee experience being led by, the hybrid worker that can work anytime, any place, and that old traditional kind of martini working really being in their gift. Interesting.
Yeah, we're almost back to the service profit chain, and so how do we as leaders engage our teams so that we're really set up to deliver what customers will increasingly demand going forwards? Yeah,
excellent. Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, Richard. It's been a great session. Really good and valuable insights. So Graham, your final thoughts? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's interesting. I've been kind of watching the government legislation, the flexible working bill, and what's happening with that. That's going to have a great impact on us. It's passed its first reading. We're all coming out of furlough. We're coming out of lockdown, coming into our new world, and we've got a huge opportunity to get this right. And COVID is no longer, as we were saying, an excuse for poor customer experience. We've heard Richard's perspective, and over our forthcoming podcasts, we're going to be hearing from marketing, from operations, more from the boardroom, and we'll be keeping everybody updated with all things hybrid working. So please remember to like, share, and subscribe. If you've got any thoughts or questions or subjects that you'd like us to discuss, please do get in touch. Richard, thank you very, very much for joining us. Thank you for your insight. Natalie, thank you for being my co-host, and we will see and talk to everybody else very, very soon.